I discovered my girlfriend of 8 years was cheating with my best friend during his wedding, and to make matters worse, I found out all my friends were aware and mocking me behind my back. Rather than confront them immediately, I chose to pretend I didn't know, and dropped a bombshell during the wedding to destroy not just his special day, but his entire life. Back in college, I was part of a close-knit group of friends from my department. Over the years, we stayed in touch, 7 of us in total, including 4 women and 3 men. One of the guys, whom I'll call Ethan, was my college roommate and my closest friend since those days. Recently, I attended his wedding, which is when everything unraveled. Out of this group, I'd been dating one of the women, let's call her Nicole, for 8 years. Originally, Nicole was closer to these friends, but after we started dating, I became part of the group, and Ethan joined as well. Nicole and I began dating in our second year of college when I was 20. Over the years, we grew together, overcoming some tough times, but always pulling through. For the past year, I had been discussing marriage with Nicole, but she kept insisting she wasn't ready. This puzzled me because both of us were stable in our careers, and we'd been living together for 4 years. I couldn't understand why marriage was such an issue. I valued my career, but I also wanted to start a family. Nicole and I had frequent arguments about this recently. She accused me of rushing things, which made no sense to me given our long history. She also claimed I should focus more on my work, even though I earned more than anyone I knew and had been managing my father's office supplies company for 2 years. Many men balance successful careers with marriage and kids, so her argument didn't hold water. I began to suspect she was avoiding commitment altogether, which upset me deeply. Despite our frequent fights, we hadn't broken up, and I believed we'd always find our way back to each other. That belief shattered during Ethan's wedding. I discovered Nicole was likely cheating on me, and the shocking part was that it was with Ethan, the groom. Just a couple of days before the wedding, I caught them in the act. I'd gone to the parking lot to buy medicine for a migraine, and there they were, making out in my car. Instead of confronting them on the spot, I decided to handle it dramatically. Nicole and I had arrived at the wedding hotel the day before, and while I skipped the rehearsal dinner due to exhaustion and migraines, I eventually went out to get my medication. That's when I found them. I stood there for about 45 seconds, frozen in disbelief, before turning and walking away. They didn't notice me, because they were too engrossed in each other. Later, after the rehearsal dinner ended, I went to one of my friends' rooms to talk about what I'd seen. To my horror, I overheard the group laughing and joking about Nicole and Ethan. They were mocking how clueless I was, discussing how often Nicole and Ethan had been sneaking around, including during wedding preparations and even at the engagement party when I'd left early. Time Nicole returned to the room, my mind was set. I acted like everything was fine, and we went to bed without discussing anything. The following day, on the wedding day, I greeted everyone as usual, and everything seemed normal until I decided to stand up just before the ceremony began. In front of all the guests, I announced that I wanted to give a speech in honor of my friend. This wasn't customary, so people gave me strange looks, but Ethan must have assumed I was going to say something heartfelt about him. He allowed it, which turned out to be a huge mistake because I then revealed everything I had seen the night before. I also mentioned what I had overheard our friends discussing in their room, including details about what happened at the engagement party. At least the group had enough decency to look embarrassed, but I wasn't focused on them. I was only interested in how Nicole and Ethan would react. Unsurprisingly, they panicked as they realized where my speech was headed. Nicole, sitting next to me, tried to stop me by urging me to sit down and stay quiet. When Ethan realized he'd been left at the altar, he ran after her, and the entire situation descended into chaos. I didn't care about the commotion. I shook off Nicole, went to the parking lot where I had packed my bags earlier, and drove home. It's been 3 days since then. For the first 2 days, I didn't hear from anyone, but yesterday Nicole contacted me. She admitted that she and Ethan had been in the wrong, but called my actions outright psychotic, claiming I hadn't just ruined the wedding, but destroyed Ethan's life. Apparently, Ethan is now in a terrible position. His parents have disowned him, his fiancée has dumped him, and he's effectively homeless. It turns out he had been relying on this wedding to secure financial stability. To explain, Ethan is essentially a gold digger. The wedding itself was a sham from the start. Contrary to their claim that they met through family earlier this year, Ethan and his fiancée had actually connected on a dating app. She's 6 years older than him and had been given an ultimatum by her parents to either settle down and get married or lose her inheritance to her sister. She wasn't truly interested in marriage and had been searching for someone who would agree to an open marriage. After a series of unsuccessful attempts, she met Ethan on the app, and they realized they could help each other. Ethan, unemployed for a year and uninterested in keeping any job for more than a few months, wasn't eager to marry either. But he was desperate to marry into wealth, and his fiancée's family was quite wealthy. After a few dates, they decided their arrangement would work perfectly for both of them. Everything was fine until my speech exposed the truth. Because her family had no knowledge of their private arrangement, his fiancée had to call off the wedding, knowing her parents would never approve of Ethan after such public humiliation. Their plan fell apart, and the wedding was canceled. Ethan, who had been living with his fiancée and doing nothing productive, now has no place to stay. He had even quit his last sales job. After the fiasco, his parents won't take him back, and he's struggling to figure out his next steps. Nicole thinks I should feel guilty for exposing them publicly instead of confronting them privately, claiming I've caused unnecessary trouble for Ethan. Even our friends have stopped talking to the two of them, and Nicole expects me to feel sorry for his current predicament. However, I don't feel bad for Ethan. I don't think his life is ruined. He just needs to find a job, stick with it, and take responsibility for his own life instead of leeching off others. If anything, I believe I've done him a favor by forcing him to face reality. I feel conflicted about the way I publicly humiliated both families, as my speech likely reflected poorly on them. I've met Ethan's parents before, and they're genuinely kind people. That's the one part of what Nicole said that resonated with me, and I do feel a bit guilty about that. Looking back, I think I could have avoided the public drama entirely by confronting Nicole and Ethan privately, breaking up with Nicole, and moving on in a edit. I have no idea how long this has been happening. The only information I have comes from what I overheard while eavesdropping outside the room where my friends were discussing everything. Most of what they said was just mindless joking, but they did mention the engagement party incident. I'd left early that evening because of a migraine, which isn't unusual for me in loud environments. I've consulted many doctors and take medication for it, but I still need plenty of rest, so I often leave gatherings early. Nicole usually stayed behind, which I never thought was suspicious. With our friends present, it didn't seem fair to ask her to leave with me. Until recently, I never questioned how late she returned home. Now, I'm starting to think this affair had been going on for a long time, and I was simply clueless. But it's fine. It's over now. Nicole and Ethan can continue their relationship if they want, though I doubt Ethan would want to settle down with her. For one, Nicole isn't as wealthy as he prefers his partners to be. Plus, if they stay together, she'll likely expect him to work, as she's uncomfortable being the sole breadwinner. She once told me this pressure was too much for her, and I admired that honesty at the time. However, I doubt Ethan will share that sentiment, and I don't think Nicole will have the patience to deal with Ethan's flair for drama, which is worse than mine. Either way, that's their problem now. Update 1. It's been 2 days since my original post, and I haven't responded to Nicole's message about what happened with Ethan. I don't feel any remorse because I acted out of frustration. Yes, I was harsh, but that's just how I reacted. If that caused harm to others, it's not my responsibility. While I feel bad for Ethan's parents, as they're good people, I can't bring myself to apologize. Ethan, on the other hand, fully deserved what happened. I have no intention of apologizing to anyone, not even his parents. I did text Nicole, but only to tell her to come collect her belongings as soon as possible. Now that we're no longer together, I don't want her things in my house. I gathered all her stuff, packed it into boxes, and set it aside so she can grab them and leave quickly when she arrives. I've only kept communication open with her to coordinate this, but after she picks up her things, I plan to block her too. As for the rest of my friends, they've already been blocked, with Ethan being the first on the list. Now that some time has passed, the full emotional weight of the betrayal has hit me. I wasn't just hurt by one person, but by my girlfriend, my best friend, and all the people I considered family. Our friend group was extremely close, so this has been deeply upsetting. Thankfully, my biological family has been incredibly supportive. They've been visiting me over the past few days, ensuring I'm taking care of myself. I'm very grateful to have them looking out for me. Update 2. 9 days after everything happened, Nicole texted me this morning to let me know she'd be coming by in the evening to collect her belongings. I was fine with that. Since she hadn't reached out in the past 9 days, I assumed she'd just pick up her things and leave. However, when she arrived and I started handing her the boxes, she asked if she could look around the house to ensure I hadn't missed anything. I was hesitant because it sounded like a tedious process, but I agreed, thinking it was better to get everything done in one go. Nicole went through the house, found a few more things I had overlooked, and I thought that would be the end of it. Instead, she lingered awkwardly in the living room, holding the items she'd gathered. It got so uncomfortable that I had to ask if she planned to leave anytime soon. That's when she said she wanted to talk to me and hoped I'd be more willing to address the situation now that some time had passed. Her request was extremely frustrating. She spoke to me as if years had passed since everything happened, but in reality, it hadn't even been 2 weeks. I didn't see any reason to address any issues with her. She had cheated on me with my best friend, who was about to get married, so the problem wasn't me, it was them. I reminded her that I had been clear in my message. I told her she was only welcome to come over to collect her belongings, and now that she had done that, there was no reason for her to stick around or talk to me. She started arguing, insisting that while she had cheated, I wasn't entirely blameless and needed to stop acting like everything was her fault. Up until that point, I'd been brief and restrained despite growing irritation. But when she made that comment, I lost control and began shouting. I couldn't believe she had the audacity to suggest any of this was on me. I'm well aware I'm not perfect, but her tone made it clear she was implying that I had somehow pushed her to cheat. Before she even started explaining, I knew exactly what she was going to say. As I mentioned in my original post, we'd been having issues because I wanted to settle down, get married, and start a family, while she wasn't ready for that. I knew she would bring this up, as I'd been reflecting on it myself over the past few days, but from the perspective of being the victim. In her view, she was the victim, arguing that she wasn't ready to commit because it was a significant decision. She claimed she needed time to enjoy life, before marriage and family. For the past 8 years, she had only ever been with me and tailored all her decisions around our relationship. Apparently, this left her feeling like she didn't know herself anymore, which, somehow, was supposed to be my fault. I couldn't believe she thought these excuses were reasonable. If she had such a major issue with committing to me after 8 years, it was clear we had entirely different priorities and expectations in life. The logical options would have been to continue discussing our differences and find common ground or break up. Instead, she chose to cheat so she could have the best of both worlds, doing whatever she wanted while keeping me as a backup. And now I was the villain for not accepting that. Her attempt to paint herself as equally wronged infuriated me so much that I screamed at her until my voice was hoarse. Even then, she kept arguing and justifying herself, claiming that I had stressed her out and that Ethan understood her in a way I never could. I repeatedly asked her to leave, but she refused, insisting I needed to accept that I wasn't perfect and had been just as toxic as she had been. I was so angry that calling the police didn't even cross my mind. Eventually, I'd had enough, walked to the door, opened it, and stood there silently, waiting for her to leave. Even then, she kept trying to justify herself, spouting nonsensical arguments while I said nothing. After several long minutes, she finally got the message and left. As she walked out, she told me I could pretend to be a saint all I wanted. But deep down, I knew it took 2 people to destroy our relationship. I agree with her on that point. It did take 2 people. It took her and Ethan. But I didn't bother saying that out loud, as it would have sparked another argument, and I didn't have the energy for it. Once she was gone, I shut the door and focused on calming down. The conversation had left me fuming. Even when we were together, she'd always struggled to admit when she was wrong. Back then, I found it somewhat charming. But today, it was unbearable. I'm glad she left when she did because I was close to throwing something out of frustration. It's over now. She's gone, and I've already blocked her. I feel relieved and ready to prioritize myself. I've started going to the gym more frequently, which helps me stay distracted, and I've begun journaling. It's going to be a slow process, but I'm taking small steps to move on. After all, it was an 8-year relationship, so no matter how it ended, it's bound to leave a lasting impact. All I can continue to do is ensure that this mark from the past doesn't weigh on me too heavily. Update 3. Hi. It's been 2 years since my last update. I've thought about posting here for a while now, and today I finally managed to log in and share what's been going on. On the professional front, things are going incredibly well, better than ever, and I'm genuinely happy. I've also become somewhat of a fitness enthusiast, which has been a great change for me. I haven't had any contact with my old college group in these 2 years, and honestly, I couldn't care less about how they're doing. My family has been my rock throughout this journey, supporting me and making sure I'm okay, and that's all I could ever need. I now have a very small circle of friends, just a few people from school and some coworkers. But they're genuine and truly care about me. For the past few weeks, I've also started dating someone. Dating was completely off the table for me over the past year or so, as I was still processing the trauma from my last relationship. However, one of my friends introduced me to her cousin at her birthday party, and she turned out to be incredibly kind and sweet. From the moment we met, I felt an immediate connection. My friend set us up on a date, and we've been seeing each other ever since. I've been completely open with her about my previous relationship and the toll it took on me. I told her I wanted to take things slowly before getting serious, and she completely understands. She respects my feelings and has even said she's willing to wait, as she feels I'm the perfect guy for her. We're aligned on the big things too, like marriage and having kids. She wants those just as much as I do. I feel like I've finally met someone who's truly right for me. At this point, I'm far happier than Nicole and Ethan, who ended up getting married a few months after my last update. Their marriage didn't even last a year. They divorced within that time. I heard about it from an old college acquaintance who loves to gossip. I can't say I feel sorry for them. Doing so would be a complete lie. But I do hope this experience teaches them a valuable lesson and helps them avoid hurting others the way they hurt me. That said, given their nature, they probably won't change. Still, I feel like I've truly moved on from everything that happened. I'm in a good place now, and honestly, I'm happy.